Evidence secured at marker 4. Advise command we are holding the scene.
Copy that. It's getting heavier out here.
One visit ended a decade-long manhunt. February 21st, 2026. A woman reaches Cababanas Loma, a mountain compound in Talpa, Jalisco, Mexico. This property rests about 130 kilometers outside Guadalajara, locked behind dense timber and steep elevation, completely cut off, highly secure. A fugitive dodging the largest manhunt in Mexican history would deliberately select this exact environment to vanish from the map. She came to see a ghost. The entire planet spent over 10 years chasing him. The United States government placed a $15 million price tag on his life. Survival meant trusting nobody. He shifted relentlessly across transient safe houses and remote high-altitude bunkers. Cameras never caught him recently. People whispered he died, yet nobody produced a body. Global intelligence agencies missed him entirely. The DEA chased his trail since 2010. The FBI built whole specialized units just to track his movements. Mexican military operatives designated his capture their primary objective. Despite everything, he walked free year after year. She lingers at the property for several hours. Then she vanishes. What follows? Total collapse. He stays behind with his personal security detail, heavily armed men sworn to defend his life. 24 hours later, Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes, known globally as Eleno, architect and boss of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, Mexico's top criminal syndicate, and a dominant operational force across the Western Hemisphere, meets his end. Official government documentation states clearly that Mexican Special Forces operatives inflicted lethal injuries during a raid, and he perished before reaching a medical facility. Dead at 59 years old, the architect behind a worldwide underworld empire is permanently erased. One question tortures investigators, journalists, intelligence analysts, and every single person tracking this development since that particular Sunday in February. Did she realize what was coming when she drove away from that mountain fortress? Did she intentionally guide Mexican and American strike teams right to a target they chased for 10 years? Did cash, immunity, vengeance, or strict morals motivate a deliberate betrayal? Or did invisible surveillance technology track her movements entirely without her knowledge as she traveled, making her a blind pawn in a strike, concluding the largest tactical manhunt in Mexican history? She was the key. This narrative details how El Mencho placed his faith in a woman who guided strike teams straight to his final breath. We examine how a simple romantic bond forged a fatal weak point that decades of obsessive operational security failed to defend. We uncover the tactical intelligence, advanced surveillance tech, covert human assets, and the most ancient flaw known to fleeing criminals: trust. Infinite caution means absolutely nothing. You can deploy endless tactical precautions, fund an advanced security apparatus, and execute severely disciplined daily operational protocols continuously. Trusting the wrong individual shatters everything. One minor error from a loyal ally, or a secondary betrayal from their inner circle, brings the entire empire crashing down immediately. On February 22, 2026, deep inside a Talpa, Jalisco, Mexico forest, the nation's premier fugitive watched his world completely disintegrate. Grasping this tactical victory requires deeply analyzing exactly who Eleno was. How did he evade capture for years, while planetary intelligence networks aggressively hunted his every move? Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes entered the world on July 17, 1966. Born into an agricultural Mitacan community, an impoverished Mexican region, poverty defined his childhood. Primary school failed to hold him. He lacked basic academic training, possessed zero generational money, and held absolutely no inherited political leverage. He leveraged raw drive, unyielding brutality, and profound tactical genius. By 2010, he forged the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. The DEA officially labeled it a dominant, rapidly expanding criminal syndicate across the Western Hemisphere. His operatives controlled territory in 21 out of 32 Mexican states. Active distribution cells entrenched themselves across nearly every American zip code. DEA intelligence confirmed his network moved roughly one-third of all illicit narcotics crossing American borders. The United States State Department formally classified his group a foreign terrorist organization by early 2025, making them an unprecedented Mexican cartel to earn this severe label. Washington attached a $15 million bounty to his life. Washington matched cash bounties previously reserved exclusively for high-profile international terror targets, exactly like Osama bin Laden. He dodged justice annually. Meanwhile, task forces systematically hunted his bloodline, locking them away. Authorities extradited his own son, Rubén Oseguera González, commonly called El Manito, to the United States in 2020, leaving him rotting inside a federal cell today. Strike teams arrested his wife, Rosalinda González Valencia, for money laundering during 2022. She walked free during 2025, but active prosecutorial crosshairs remain locked. Agents captured his brother Antonio Oseguera Cervantes in 2022, executing a United States extradition order in 2023. A single fatal flaw shattered an untouchable empire, but the collapse officially started in February 2025, when Mexican authorities recaptured his brother Abraham, the founding money launderer known as Don Roto. Year after year, coordinated task forces from the United States and Mexico methodically dismantled El Meno's entire family network, ripping it apart piece by piece. Treasury Department sanctions systematically choked out the cartel's financial infrastructure. Federal agents shattered complex logistics networks by arresting vital operators. Targeted strikes against regional commanders effectively crippled the organization's enforcement structure. Everything surrounding El Meno burned. Yet Elno himself remained a complete ghost. His ironclad operational security genuinely stunned the elite intelligence veterans hunting him. Extraordinary discipline kept him breathing. Beyond his immediate security detail, the man trusted absolutely nobody. He bounced relentlessly between safe houses, never lingering long enough for authorities to gather actionable intelligence. He completely abandoned electronic communications to evade signals intelligence intercepts. No trackable cell phones, no monitored internet connections. He stayed entirely off the digital grid. Instead, highly trusted couriers physically hand-delivered messages, bypassing electronic surveillance completely. Only a few photographs existed, mostly snapped decades prior, while he climbed the criminal ranks. Recent photos were virtually non-existent, rendering any visual physical identification basically impossible, even facing him directly. Rumors of his death circulated wildly for years. In February 2022, Mexican media claimed a cartel shootout eliminated him. Investigations proved otherwise. Other reports insisted a known kidney disease finally finished him inside a Guadalajara hospital bed. All false. He remained alive, actively directing strategy, commanding operations, and managing one of modern history's most sophisticated criminal enterprises. Armed guards provided just one layer of his extreme protection, backed by intense operational discipline, keeping his exact location totally concealed, even from members within his own cartel. What elite intelligence agencies failed to crack using high-tech electronic surveillance, through complex financial tracking, or deeply rooted human intelligence networks, they would eventually break using something much more ancient. A romantic partner, a simple, undeniable human connection, an unfixable vulnerability that strict operational security cannot erase, because human connection always creates inherent risk. By February 2026, that exact bond guided Mexican special forces straight to Elno's hidden compound. But before breaking down this hour-by-hour operation and detailing how intelligence pinpointed the woman exposing El Meno, we must examine three competing theories. Did she betray him deliberately, unwittingly, or somewhere entirely in between? This case proves how even the most sophisticated fugitives fall to human vulnerabilities rather than basic technological failures. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now, because this goes far beyond one fugitive and a single intelligence raid. You are looking at a masterclass in modern law enforcement. It shows how advanced surveillance technology intersects with traditional human intelligence gathering, and how flawless operational security spanning over 10 years can collapse completely in 24 hours because of trust and human connection. We drop new investigations weekly, delivering verified accuracy, serious analytical depth, and zero cheap sensationalism. If you truly want to understand exactly what went down in Talpa on February 22nd, but precisely how it happened, why it happened then, and what it reveals about fugitive operations and intelligence methodology, smash that like button and sound off in the comments. Did she burn him on purpose? Or was she an unwitting participant tracked without her knowledge? That mystery woman whose February 21st trip to Topalpa triggered the fatal operation ending El Mencho's life remains completely unidentified. Mexican authorities refuse to release her name. American authorities have kept her identity locked down tight. No media reports have published her photograph. Whether she remains alive today, where she lives, if she survived, is she navigating witness protection under an assumed identity or hiding from potential retaliation? Has she relocated internationally, or does she remain in Mexico? None of that information is public. The utter silence surrounding her true identity remains practically absolute. What we know, independently confirmed by government sources and verified across multiple major credible news organizations, is she was officially described as El Mencho's romantic partner. The visitor who triggered the downfall of the world's most elusive boss wasn't his wife. He already had one. He maintained a covert romance instead, ignoring the severe operational hazards this intimacy guaranteed. Bypassing his legendary defense network to reach him reveals a crucial reality. El Mencho strictly banned outsiders from his inner sanctum. He engineered his defense protocols to completely blind anyone lacking absolute clearance to his exact coordinates. Somehow, this woman penetrated that shield. She secured visiting rights. She held his exact itinerary. Handing over that intel requires deep, unwavering trust. This specific loyalty only forms through years of shared, mutual danger. She knowingly tied herself to one of the planet's most heavily hunted fugitives. She understood perfectly that loving him guaranteed total exposure to government wiretaps, prison time, or brutal retaliation from enemy cartels. Meanwhile, he gambled his life by inviting an outsider into his stronghold. This outsider held the power to leak his coordinates, intentionally or otherwise. Reporting confirms she arrived at his Talpa compound on Saturday, February 21st. They spent hours together, then she walked out. Within 24 hours, Mexican special forces launched the fatal strike that ended his life. Who gave up the ghost? Discovering how. Investigators weaponized her identity to hunt him means analyzing modern espionage tactics that activate when old-school policing fails for years. United States and Mexican operatives burned through every standard tracking method for over 10 years just to find him. They wiretapped every communication grid linked to his massive syndicate. Agents scoured cellular towers, digital footprints, and heavily encrypted chat platforms. They hunted any signal echoing from the top cartel brass. Analysts traced dark money flowing toward senior commanders. The Treasury Department dropped heavy sanctions and scrutinized global banking records. Agents monitored crypto wallets while dismantling dummy corporations and front companies. Handlers recruited deep cover assets working inside the cartel. Prosecutors flipped captured cartel members, offering them reduced sentences or witness protection to secure their cooperation. Military satellites and high-altitude drones hovered continuously over his suspected territories, actively analyzing daily human routines, vehicle convoys, and new construction projects that exposed hidden safe houses. Nothing generated a single actionable coordinate regarding his physical location for over 10 years. The man left nothing. He ran flawless communication security protocols. He aggressively boycotted trackable hardware. His transit routes were constantly shifting. He broke every routine before surveillance teams could establish a baseline. He kept his inner circle incredibly tight and fiercely devoted. Only blood relatives who refused to break, or bodyguards whose sole purpose involved keeping him breathing, knew his coordinates. So what finally pierced his armor? The ultimate breakthrough did not come from standalone tech alone. No top-tier insider handed over a massive cartel organizational chart either. Agents pinpointed a civilian connection who unknowingly mapped a path right to his door, merging ground-level human assets with advanced digital wiretaps to track the romance. Government insiders ultimately leaked the exact methodology to the press. Strike teams isolated a highly trusted confidant connected straight to the kingpin's girlfriend. They bypassed the girlfriend and targeted a core member of her personal entourage. This target held the keys to her daily itinerary, private messages, transit habits, and hidden ties to the cartel. This detail changes everything. If intentional cooperation occurred, the fatal leak likely bypassed the woman entirely and originated from a supposedly loyal friend, maybe the chauffeur who drove her to the compound, perhaps a close friend hearing secrets about the affair, a relative tracking her criminal link, even the armed guards riding shotgun. Anyone holding her precise schedule instantly became a lethal weapon. So when did the trap snap? It snapped on February 20th, 2026. Mexican military intelligence partnered with U.S. Northern Command, the specific American military branch, directing North American operations. While backing Mexican security elements, they intercepted what insiders verified as a rock-solid tip. Zero speculation, zero rumors, pure, actionable intelligence, proving this associate could navigate tactical teams straight to his immediate position. The crosshairs locked precisely onto Talpa, a stunning colonial tourist hub hidden deep inside the Jalisco Mountains, famous for traditional architecture and dramatic landscapes. Operatives pinpointed the exact target inside Talpa as Cabañas La Loma. The United States Treasury Department had previously sanctioned this exact vacation resort for financially fueling his criminal empire. That prior government sanction changes the entire narrative. Authorities already knew this exact real estate tied back to the cartel. They previously tracked it. They investigated and officially designated the property. They simply lacked one crucial detail until February 20th. Mencho actively used those cabins as his personal fortress. A single calendar date unlocked the entire operation. Intelligence proved his romantic partner would visit El Mencho on Saturday, February 21st, before departing. This opened a strict operational window. If strike teams waited until she left, they could raid the property without catching her in the crossfire and without tipping El Mencho off that his network was compromised. Striking while she remained on site meant tactical teams would face a sudden hostage scenario. That nightmare would scramble their tactical approach, almost certainly putting her life at risk during the inevitable firefight. Wait too long after she vanished, and El Mencho might relocate. Their strike window was razor thin. Would they miss it? They didn't miss. Saturday, she arrives. By Sunday morning, she departs. Sunday, units strike. The 24-hour countdown clock started ticking exactly when that critical intelligence landed. Mid-video educational statement. This analysis examines modern law enforcement methodology and live intelligence operations strictly for educational purposes. We base all presented information entirely on verified government sources, official reports, and credible journalistic investigations. We aim to understand how modern fugitive operations actually function, strictly avoiding glorifying criminal activity or sensationalizing tragic events. The intelligence puzzle authorities assembled over the following 36 hours reveals how modern operations fuse diverse sources into actionable strike plans. His romantic partner traveled to Talpa on Saturday, February 21st. Authorities deliberately keep the specific details of her transit completely classified. Did she drive down from Guadalajara? Did she arrive from another city? Did armed security shadow her? How long did it take? Those operational details stay classified, since exposing them would burn active surveillance methods. What happened next? We finally got confirmation. She arrived straight at Cabañas La Loma and met directly with Oseguera. She stayed for hours. That gave intelligence assets monitoring the grid enough time to visually confirm, through multiple methods, that Eleno currently occupied the target location. How did they verify his presence? Public records hide the exact methods, but standard intelligence playbooks let us infer exactly what tactical pieces were moving. Physical surveillance operators deployed across Talpa and surrounding areas, visually locking onto the compound from a distance using high-powered optical gear. Technical surveillance deployed, utilizing drone or satellite coverage. This provided overhead imagery of the compound and surrounding terrain. Signals intelligence simultaneously tracked all electronic emissions radiating from the property. They captured radio communications from security personnel. Crucially, they utilized information from the human source. This trusted associate provided the initial tip and likely maintained steady communication with the woman or the immediate people surrounding her. Command center analysts instantly fused all these intelligence streams together, mathematically verifying that their primary high-value target actively occupied the location. They assumed nothing. Verified intelligence from redundant sources solidly pointed toward one inescapable conclusion. But for how long? Then, she left late Saturday or early Sunday. Again, they hide the exact timeline, but her departure remains an absolute fact. He stayed behind, anchored by his armed security detail. In that exact second, tactical authorities secured something they had missed throughout 10 solid years of intensive hunting. They had a confirmed location and the verified presence of their specific target. He remained entirely stationary inside a known compound, instead of bouncing between hideouts. Assault planning launched within the very first hour. Analysts confirmed Elmeno stayed behind at the compound after the woman exited. Local police or even standard military units could never execute an operation carrying this level of extreme tactical risk. Elno's security detail wielded heavily armed, military-grade weapons. The compound itself almost certainly featured hardened, pre-prepared defensive positions. Creeping closer undetected strictly demanded Tier 1 special operations capabilities. Commanders immediately tasked the Mexican National Guard's Special Reaction Force, an elite unit trained specifically to execute high-risk operations against organized criminal cartels. With the mission, United States Northern Command delivered what officials categorized as active surveillance support. That package likely included real-time drone or satellite feeds covering the entire compound and surrounding terrain. This let Mexican commanders track enemy movements, pinpoint defensive positions, and dynamically adjust their tactical plan. Would it work? They moved forward. The operational plan strictly balanced competing requirements. Speed remained essential. If Elmeno discovered authorities were closing the net, he would vanish immediately. He survived this long precisely because he relocated instantly whenever threatened. But the final approach demanded total secrecy. If strike forces staged too close to Talpa too early, his security network might detect their footprint through cartel lookouts or local community informants. They might simply observe the unusual military activity. Commanders solved this by staging forces entirely outside Jalisco to preserve the element of surprise, moving them in rapidly to establish a secure perimeter before launching the assault. Taking down a phantom demanded absolute, unforgiving tactical precision. Yet guns didn't doom him, a romantic mistake did. First, strike teams had to hit simultaneously from all angles. Sunday morning, February 22nd, the violent operation officially kicked off. Elite Mexican Special Forces silently surrounded Cababana. Heavily armed troops staging in the shadows overnight pushed forward to lock down the perimeter, actively choking off every highway and dirt trail leading out. Then the primary assault force breached the gates. Government press releases and media echoes hint at the ensuing violence, yet officials keep the exact tactical breakdown buried in classified files for security reasons. What are they hiding? Official records confirm one undeniable fact. When the military units pushed onto the property and announced themselves, Elmeno's security detail opened fire without a second thought. Official debriefs confirm operators killed multiple individuals during that initial brutal firefight. 2 Mexican soldiers took hits during the raid. Total chaos erupted, giving Elmeno and 2 loyal bodyguards the exact distraction they needed to abandon the main house. They vanished into the dense timber circling Cababanas La Loma, woods that Elmeno likely memorized over his long stay at the hideout. Trees offered deep cover, yet formed a deadly cage because elite operators had already sealed the perimeter. Commandos broke into small pursuit teams, tracking their prey through the timber. The terrain fought back with tangled brush, sheer drops, and near-zero sight lines. Yet the hunters held every advantage. Overwhelming numbers, specialized training, and knowing the targets remained trapped inside the net. They pulled Eleno from the brush. Was he breathing? Barely. Official government statements confirm he took severe damage during the operation. Officials carefully engineered the press release they issued later that day. Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes and his 2 bodyguards died before anyone could transport them to emergency medical facilities. Handlers strapped the bleeding men into a helicopter bound for Mexico City, desperately chasing advanced trauma care. All 3 men bled out mid-flight. Military cargo planes hauled the corpses back to Mexico City. Forensics ran fingerprints and advanced biometric scans to legally process and confirm the identities of the dead. At 59 years old, the architect behind the deadliest, most dominant criminal organization ever seen in the history of the Western Hemisphere, who evaded capture for 10 years, defying the most relentless manhunt in Mexican law enforcement history, was finally gone. But how did they find him? That $15 million American reward was officially claimed. The massive manhunt was over. It ended simply because, on Saturday, February 21st, a woman paid him a visit at the mountain compound. From there, authorities either flipped someone close to leak intelligence about her trip, deployed advanced surveillance tech to shadow her movements, or directly persuaded her to talk. Which exact scenario actually went down? That remains the ultimate mystery. It is the lingering unknown, fiercely debated by intelligence analysts, investigative reporters, and scholars analyzing cartel networks today. Did the woman whose trip triggered this massive operational success actually know what she was doing? Did she grasp that her arrival would unleash a deadly strike team within 24 hours? Or was she simply a blind pawn, shadowed by surveillance she never detected, handing over the precise intelligence that launched the assault without her knowledge or permission? 3 rival theories exist. Each leans on different readings of the raw evidence. Each perfectly mirrors how these shadow operations typically run in reality. Decoding these theories means analyzing exactly why civilians decide to cooperate with federal agencies in hunting down someone they personally love, while also grasping the sheer capabilities of modern surveillance. The first theory, the one banking on intentional, active cooperation, claims this woman partnered directly with Mexican or American handlers for a highly calculated intelligence op. Agents flagged her as someone holding a direct line to Eleno. Intelligence operatives, or their shadow intermediaries, then approached her, ensuring they could establish vital contact without exposing their official ties, eventually convincing her to feed them his exact coordinates. Under this theory, her drive to Talpa on February 21st was absolutely no standard romantic getaway built on affection. It was a tactical intelligence drop. She functioned as an active informant, what federal agencies label a verified human asset. Her sole mission that weekend? Confirm Eleno was still breathing inside Cababanas Loma, thoroughly scope out his security layers, and tally the guards and their firepower. She needed to figure out if he planned to stay, put, or run soon. Then, she had to evacuate, giving strike teams the green light to raid the property without catching her in the brutal crossfire. $15 million. That exact bounty hung over his head. Why would a fugitive's own romantic partner agree to help the authorities hunt him down? Informants rarely flip for just one reason. They operate on deeply layered motives. Money speaks loudly. The United States government promised a $15 million reward cash that rewrites a future. Even a small fraction of it, say $5 million or $1 million, funneled quietly through secure channels designed to hide the money trail and protect the source's identity completely, easily convinces someone to hand over the crucial intelligence agents need to capture a person they intimately know. This cash buys a total blank slate, permanent financial security, and instant relocation abroad. Yet fear drives choices just as hard. What if federal agents held criminal charges over her head regarding El Mencho, cartel financial activities, or her direct knowledge of specific crimes? Prosecutors aggressively pitch complete cooperation as the sole avenue to avoid prosecution entirely or secure a heavily reduced sentence. Agents do not even need active indictments to squeeze her. They simply look a target in the eye and threaten future federal prosecution. They make the target understand that talking provides the only exit strategy from a cell, instantly breaking a lover's resistance to full cooperation. Physical survival forces hands too. Did she desperately need protection? She might have desperately wanted out of her relationship with El Mencho, fearing retaliation from either the organization or El Mencho himself. Perhaps she witnessed events that forced her hand, but saw absolutely zero ways to walk away breathing. Handlers likely pitched federal witness protection as her one and only viable method to escape this nightmare alive. The program issues a fresh name, funds a secret location, and severs all past ties. Any trapped partner might gladly pay the ultimate price of betrayal for that ticket out. Cynical observers scoff at this final possibility, however unlikely it may seem on paper. Genuine moral motivation exists. What if she witnessed specific, serious crimes that absolutely horrified her and troubled her conscience? She likely tried distancing herself from the criminal operations funding Eleno's life. But nobody can separate the activities from the man forever. She ultimately decided turning him over served true justice, actively ignoring the intimate nature of their romantic bond. History proves fewer informants flip for morals than for cash, but the phenomenon absolutely exists. The real question remains, did she betray him? The evidence pointing toward her deliberate betrayal relies purely on circumstances, yet forms an absolutely devastating pattern. Her visit happened mere days before tactical teams breached. She either orchestrated a masterstroke of coordination or pulled off an extraordinary operational coincidence. Intelligence sources officially verified that a highly trusted associate of one of El Mencho's romantic partners delivered the tip, sparking the raid. That specific phrasing carefully avoids confirming the woman herself acted as the mole. However, it proves someone standing firmly in her tightest inner circle fed real-time, actionable secrets directly to the federal authorities. Did she know this associate leaked her own private movements? The informant absolutely needed her specific schedule to tell the strike team exactly when and where she planned to visit El Mencho. She vanished from the compound mere hours before tactical teams breached it. Did she get extremely lucky? Or did handlers order her to evacuate before the operation began? Imagine she simply visited him normally, completely blind to the impending raid. Leaving right before the raid began defies every law of probability. And consider the operation's success. The tactical strike team executed the mission with absolute precision. They attacked at the exact second. They bypassed specific security layers effortlessly. That requires fresh, on-the-ground human intelligence fed from an active insider, not stale surveillance gathered remotely from a distance. Stack these facts up, and they scream intentional, active coordination. A woman visits a fugitive. She catalogs his exact location and security guards. She hands this layout to her handler. She walks away. Strike teams mobilize instantly based entirely on her word. They capture the target. But patterns do not automatically equal hard, irrefutable proof. Yet one completely different narrative fits these exact same facts just as perfectly. The second theory assumes unwitting participation. She blindly walked into a trap. She never knew she was the bait. This theory argues she visited El Mencho on February 21st, completely unaware she was leading authorities to him, offering zero cooperation to intelligence agencies. Agents never knocked on her door. She never signed a deal to provide information. She lived entirely in the dark, blind to the fact someone inside her inner circle was actively funneling intelligence to Mexican or American authorities. She drove up to Talpa expecting nothing more than a standard visit with her romantic partner. They spent those hours together. She left governed entirely by her own timeline, completely unaware that a massive tactical operation would crash down on that exact location within 24 hours. This specific angle demands that the trusted associate cited across those intelligence reports, the individual profiled as closely connected to one of El Mencho's romantic partners, surrendered this intelligence without the woman ever knowing or giving consent. That scenario remains entirely plausible, mirroring exactly how human intelligence operations function daily. Maybe this associate drove her vehicle up to Talpa, secretly operating as an agency recruit tasked with quietly reporting her exact movements. Maybe a security guard assigned to protect her during these trips actually wore a wire for the authorities. Or maybe a close friend listened to her relationship secrets, absorbing exactly when and where she planned to meet El Mencho. Who really betrayed them? Maybe a family member discovered her hidden connection and made a deeply calculated choice to independently feed that intelligence to authorities, driven purely by money, fear, or moral conviction. Modern surveillance technology elevates this unwitting participant theory from mere possibility into probable fact. Once intelligence agencies flagged this woman holding direct access to Eleno, realizing she could lead them right to him if monitored properly, they could have blanketed her life with comprehensive technical surveillance, requiring zero knowledge, consent, or active cooperation from her end. If she carried a cell phone, agencies likely infected that device with invisible malware, granting authorities full access to track her real-time location, intercept active communications, and harvest her contacts and messages. Covert teams might have planted tracking devices underneath her vehicle while she was physically absent and totally unaware. Elite physical surveillance units trained specifically to operate undetected could have shadowed her daily, swapping vehicles and rotating field operators to prevent recognition. So when she drove to Talpa on February 21st, operating under this exact kind of comprehensive surveillance web, authorities recognized immediately she was moving toward the mountains. Once she parked at Cababanya Loma, tactical teams instantly locked onto the coordinates to confirm the specific location. As those hours ticked by, command posts understood this wasn't just a brief stop. This extended visit proved El Mencho was inside, comfortable enough with his security detail to let her stay. The moment she finally left, they knew the target sat isolated, with only his security detail, completely vulnerable to an impending tactical assault. Under this exact scenario, her innocent visit triggered the operation not because she intended to provide intelligence or willingly cooperated, but because strike teams had spent months, maybe years, waiting for exactly this kind of operational opportunity, an opportunity to track her directly to his location. She delivered him unknowingly, simply by maintaining a relationship the authorities had already identified and were monitoring. The evidence supporting this unwitting participant theory is heavily circumstantial, yet undeniably significant. Neither Mexican nor American authorities ever leaked her true identity publicly, strongly suggesting she never signed on as a willing, cooperative witness. Think about it. If she cooperated deliberately and entered federal witness protection as a reward or safeguard for that cooperation, the government wouldn't need to maintain this extreme secrecy around her identity. She would already be living securely under an entirely new name in a separate location. The fact that both governments maintain absolute radio silence about who she is suggests they are actively protecting her, not for cutting a deal, but because she never cooperated. The state simply refuses to expose an unwitting participant to severe, potentially fatal consequences. We have seen zero statements released from her, no leaked quotes, and absolutely no interviews conducted. This complete lack of public acknowledgement hints at two realities. Either she refuses to speak publicly because she cannot acknowledge her accidental role, or she genuinely remains unaware of how deeply agents exploited her daily movements. Even more significantly, consider the exact fact that this operation was officially described in intelligence briefings as resulting from data provided by a trusted associate of a romantic partner, totally bypassing the romantic partner herself. That specific language could be precisely accurate if the actual source stood quietly inside her own circle. Intelligence agencies operate very carefully with their language when officially describing sources. When they explicitly state the leak originated from an associate instead of the woman, that phrasing is heavily intentional and entirely accurate. But what if the truth sits in the middle? The third theory, more complex, and reflecting the messy reality of how intelligence operations actually work, attempts to bridge that gap between deliberate cooperation and complete ignorance. Someone knew they were watching. This theory suggests the mystery woman fully understood law enforcement targeted her. Recognizing she operated under an active federal surveillance umbrella, she perhaps even sat for face-to-face questioning previously. Yet she yielded zero actionable intelligence. She never foresaw the exact timing or lethal nature of the operation her Talpa visit ultimately triggered. Picture this scenario. Agents intercept her months prior. They flash badges, pressing hard for answers regarding her romantic link to El Mencho. They slide money across the table. They promise blanket immunity and protection. She likely declines. But that single encounter confirms a chilling fact. Agencies know her identity and monitor her daily life. From that moment, she assumes they tap her phones. She expects them to track her every physical move. She implements evasive measures. What she absolutely guards is any specific data regarding that impending February 21st trip. She never warns operatives about traveling to Talpa. She categorically refuses to hand over El Mencho's hidden location. Operatives hunt her down instead. They deploy sophisticated surveillance tech she anticipates but simply cannot outrun. This middle ground frames a highly nuanced truth. She functions neither as a fully willing witness earning paid protection, nor as an oblivious surveillance victim missing the trap completely. She was a woman trapped in the crossfire. She knew the federal eyes never blinked. Realizing her ties to El Mencho made her a high-value pawn, yet she refused active cooperation and lacked any control over how they weaponized that scrutiny. It presents a psychologically dense labyrinth. This messy reality strikes closer to the truth than clean narratives of innocence. But that truth sparked a bloodbath. The bloodbath starts with verified facts. Confirmed government statements and credible reporting provide a limited but massive intelligence footprint. A female associate, identified as El Mencho's romantic partner, traveled to see him at Cababana La Loma on Saturday, February 21st. Hard intelligence regarding that rendezvous, whether pulled directly from her, a close confidant, or technical surveillance tracking her physical route, hit the desks at Mexican Military Intelligence and U.S. Northern Command. Agencies verified El Mencho's physical presence on site. Leveraging that exact data, strike teams planned and executed a raid within 24 hours. The tactical assault ended exactly as official government documents report. As for the woman, whoever she is today, wherever she sleeps, she vanished from the public record entirely. We ask if she secured witness protection, adopting a fresh identity in the United States or elsewhere. We ask if she hides independently in Mexico or if she even draws breath today. Zero information exists publicly. The Mexican government maintains absolute radio silence regarding her fate. American officials refuse comment. Even surviving leadership within the organization, El Mencho-led, keeps her identity buried, assuming they know it. She is a ghost. But the cartel retaliated. The cartel erupted. The violent operational response from El Mencho's syndicate in the immediate aftermath reveals exactly how fiercely his lieutenants avenged the strike. Mexican authorities announced El Mencho died during the Talpa raid. Within mere hours, highly coordinated chaos detonated simultaneously across multiple Mexican states. Do not call this a spontaneous riot. Cartel bosses executed an organized, meticulously planned counteroffensive. They proved their command structures survived intact, fully capable of driving massive tactical operations. Over 250 blazing roadblocks paralyzed 20 states. Sicarios hijacked vehicles to barricade highways. Heavy armed confrontations erupted against military and local police forces across multiple cities simultaneously. Government officials documented heavy casualties hitting National Guard units during these synchronized ambushes throughout Jalisco. Local authorities forced entire school districts to lock down. Commercial airlines grounded all outbound and inbound flights servicing Guadalajara and surrounding hot zones. The U.S. Embassy in Mexico City blasted emergency alerts, ordering American citizens inside those affected states to shelter in place immediately. Officials told expats to abandon travel plans and avoid all areas seeing active combat. Major cities became ghost towns. Even Guadalajara, a metropolis of over 5 million people and future host for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, went quiet as residents hid. Raw social media footage captured frantic travelers sprinting through airport terminals, desperate to evacuate before carriers canceled routes. Forget random chaos. The syndicate broadcast a highly strategic threat, targeting multiple specific audiences simultaneously. They told Mexican and American agencies that decapitation strikes carry massive, bloody consequences. They showed the Mexican public that their criminal empire retained absolute power despite losing its founding kingpin. But they saved their sharpest warning for any internal rat who provided the intel driving the lethal raid. Whether that source leaked facts deliberately or accidentally, the cartel delivered an unmistakable, violent promise regarding betrayal. Think about the woman whose visit dragged the military to Talpa. If she played a deliberate role, the sheer scale and ferocious intensity of this retaliation told her exactly what kind of nightmare she awoke to. She completely vanished. Choosing witness protection guaranteed one terrifying reality. She needed to stay hidden, living a lie forever. Without that protective shield, this woman faces a grim alternative, frantically glancing over her shoulder for her remaining days. Yet the raid succeeded brilliantly, whether she intentionally flipped or agents unknowingly shadowed her every move. That victory exposes essential truths regarding intelligence gathering and manhunts stretching way beyond this single target. First, absolutely extreme operational security, regardless of how meticulously criminals execute it, ultimately shatters against basic emotional vulnerabilities and romantic connections. Elno stayed alive for over 10 years, trusting absolutely nobody, continuously bouncing between various concealed safe houses and dodging electronic communications that investigators might intercept, practicing extreme operational discipline that actually stunned the seasoned agents tracking him. His defensive measures seemed completely flawless, except he risked keeping one secret romantic affair outside his marriage. That affair demanded trust. It meant granting another person direct access to his physical body, hidden coordinates, and defensive perimeters. It meant lingering in an identifiable spot at a highly predictable time during those visits. That solitary weakness, that singular surrender to human intimacy, provided the exact lethal opening those federal agents had desperately hunted for. This deadly cycle echoes constantly across manhunt history. Pablo Escobar, the ruthless Colombian kingpin, controlling vast operations throughout the 1980s and early 90s, authorities pinpointed him in Medellín during 1993 by wiretapping family calls. He kept calling relatives despite fully understanding the massive risks involved. Those fateful chats guided joint Colombian and American strike teams straight to his final hideout. Osama bin Laden, who masterminded the September 11th strikes and dodged capture for almost 10 years, got cornered in Abbottabad, Pakistan during 2011 because operatives shadowed one trusted courier entering that secret compound. That delivery man? He became the fatal weak link. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, boss of the massive Sinaloa syndicate and El Mencho's fierce rival, got snagged in 2014 while secretly meeting Hollywood producers regarding a vanity biopic project. His desperate thirst for fame and massive ego forged the exact chain, dragging him back behind bars. This chilling phenomenon repeats flawlessly across decades with completely different targets. The ultimate downfall rarely stems from technical glitches or sloppy security protocols. Instead, the fatal crack always involves interpersonal bonds and individuals blindly trusted by fugitives. El Mencho desperately craved intimacy. He foolishly trusted somebody enough to grant physical access, ignoring consequences. And whether informants deliberately sold that trust for cash and immunity, or task forces blindly tracked an oblivious lover, the devastating outcome remained exactly identical. On February 22nd, inside Talpa's woods, one emotional blind spot violently ended a 10-year manhunt. Second, modern strike missions triumph only by fusing gritty street informants together with high-tech digital surveillance, never operating them independently. The explosive initial tip triggering this raid seemingly originated from flesh and blood. A closely trusted confidant orbiting El Mencho's secret romantic female partner, who leaked details to agents. However, verifying that whisper, shadowing this woman's exact path toward Talpa, watching Cabanas Loma to confirm El Meno's footprint, orchestrating assault teams. All of it demanded heavy technological firepower, including intercepted signals, tapped electronic emissions, and precise geolocation mapping her journey. Drones and military satellites constantly beamed down pristine overhead video. Relying on street informants alone, or digital tech alone, would have completely doomed this entire raid. Informants speaking without digital verification frequently peddle highly toxic lies. Conversely, raw technological data lacking boots on the ground to decode it misses vital context. Their fusion, street informants delivering highly specific details, instantly verified by powerful digital tracking systems, generates the bulletproof, actionable certainty required to launch massive strikes against armed compounds. Third, this takedown highlights the absolute weaponization of patience during manhunt investigations. Commanders could have easily kicked doors down months earlier. They could have blindly raided dozens of secondary hideouts over the years, chasing down incredibly flimsy street rumors. Tactical units could have swarmed whenever they suspected El Meno was drifting nearby, despite completely failing to pinpoint his precise front door coordinates. Instead, investigators waited. They held back until multiple independent sources absolutely guaranteed his physical presence inside one cabin. They patiently watched until the female visitor threatening to complicate crossfire safely drove away. They paused until heavily armed squadrons flawlessly positioned themselves while relentlessly rehearsing tactical breach maneuvers. That chilling discipline, refusing to strike on flawed intel and actively holding out for the absolute perfect ambush window, guaranteed a spectacular victory where endless years of previous frantic raids had totally fallen apart. She triggered the entire takedown. The woman who visited Talpa that day evaporated. She vanished just like Elno once disappeared from public view. Maybe she secured a brand new identity inside the United States Witness Protection Program. Maybe she escaped to another country independently. Maybe she hides deep inside Mexico right now. Is she even still alive? We do not know, and we probably never will. The governments involved maintain absolute, complete silence. Journalists chase her shadow continuously, but the media completely failed to uncover her true identity. Did Elno leave behind leaders who know her name? If that cartel knows, they keep the information strictly private. Why did he risk everything? She exists today solely as a historical narrative figure regarding how operatives finally located Mexico's most wanted man. She was the woman he trusted inside his mountain hideout. Her weekend visit on a Saturday in February abruptly terminated a manhunt. Multiple governments burned resources chasing him for over a decade. Did this woman cooperate deliberately for $15 million? Or demand protection or follow principle? Did she unknowingly lead authorities to him through surveillance technology she never detected? Or did she plunge into a complex middle ground between ignorance and cooperation that she herself never fully understood? We know one thing. What occurred ultimately exposes a deeply human story regarding trust and vulnerability. He forged one of modern history's most powerful criminal organizations, utilizing strategic brilliance and ruthless, machine-like efficiency. He dodged capture for over 10 years, relying on operational discipline that stunned veteran intelligence professionals. He watched authorities systematically arrest and then extradite virtually every single family member who had operated as part of his organization. Yet he could not survive total isolation. The man demanded human connection. He gave someone his trust. Whether operatives exploited that deliberately, unknowingly, or somewhere in between, official reports document the hard result on February 22, 2026. Now, she is gone. Faded into shadows, hidden inside witness protection, or perhaps dead. He vanished too. The documented operation ended completely. His established organization currently fractures, while 4 regional commanders aggressively compete for control. No clear successor stands, ready to emerge from a family structure that law enforcement systematically dismantled. The sovereign governments, who hunted him for 10 years, declare success today. Yet they watch nervously to see if this succession struggle breeds a more stable, less problematic reality than before, or if sudden fragmentation produces even greater, deadlier challenges. We conduct this specific investigation purely for educational purposes, critically examining exactly how modern intelligence operations function and how human vulnerabilities locate fugitives rather than simple technological failures. Verified government documents anchor our entire analytical process, alongside credible journalistic reporting and established intelligence methodologies. Subscribe to our channel if you want to comprehend beyond merely what happens during these operations. Learn how they work, why they fail or succeed, and what they reveal about the precise intersection between human behavior and technological surveillance. Hit that notification bell for investigations that deliver actual depth and context rather than headlines. Tell us your specific thoughts down in the comments. Did she cooperate deliberately? Did unnoticed surveillance track her movements unknowingly? Or did she get trapped in some complex middle ground? Authorities may never make the truth public, but these pressing questions demand serious, critical examination today. Thank you for approaching this complex analysis with the deep seriousness it absolutely deserves.